The world you imagine does not exist, and the destiny you wait for is a ghost that will never arrive. Look around you. How many talented souls have vanished into the shadows of history, not for lack of merit, but because they clung to the childish delusion that doing good is a shield. They spent their lives building monuments to how things ought to be, only to be crushed by the heavy weight of how things actually are. If you seek to remain virtuous among a multitude that is not, you are not a hero, you are a casualty waiting to happen. Men have long dreamed of ideal kingdoms and flawless republics, but these are merely fables told to keep the weak in their place. I speak of the effectual truth, the world of blood, iron, and the cold winds of Fortuna. Fortuna is a torrential river. She does not care for your prayers or your sense of justice. She strikes where no barriers are raised and overwhelms those who are too pure to get their hands dirty. To plan your next move, you must first burn the map of your illusions. You cannot navigate a storm with a drawing of a sunny day. Right now, you stand at a crossroads that will define the rest of your existence. You must decide. Will you be the virtuous sheep, grazing peacefully until the butcher arrives? Or will you be the fox who understands the traps and the lion who terrifies the wolves? Many will tell you that it is better to be loved, for love is a warm light. But I tell you, it is much safer to be feared than loved. One of the two, either must be dispensed with. Love is a fragile thread of obligation, held together by the fickle self-interest of men. It breaks the moment a better offer appears. But fear is anchored in the dread of punishment, a chain that never loosens and a shadow that never leaves. If you want to move the world, stop asking for its affection and start commanding its obedience. The summit is a lonely place, and it belongs only to those who prefer a secure fortress over a popular grave.
Now that the scales of innocence have fallen from your eyes, you must learn to see the world not as a gallery of virtues, but as a cold, calculating machine. I have always maintained that he who neglects what is actually done for what ought to be done, factual truth of the matter, men are, by their very nature, ungrateful, fickle, false, and cowardly. They are yours entirely when the sun is high and the need is distant, but the moment the storm clouds of adversity gather, they turn their backs. If you base your strategy on the shifting sands of human gratitude, you have already lost your kingdom before the first battle is even joined. Look at your allies with the same clinical eye you would use to inspect a blade for flaws. The man who helps you rise to power is, by necessity, your first and most dangerous enemy. He knows the path you took, he knows the weaknesses you hid, and he expects a reward that you can never fully satisfy. It is a general rule that never fails. He who is the cause of another becoming powerful is ruined. This is because that new power was forged either through your own astuteness or by force, and the one you elevated will eventually come to distrust both. Do not seek friends who love you. Seek dependents who need you. A prince who makes his people and his servants always need of him will find them forever faithful, for their survival is tied to his own. When analyzing your enemies, do not be deceived by a sudden peace or a flowery apology. Memory in men is long when it concerns their pride and their purse, but short when it concerns their gratitude. Mark this well. He who believes that new benefits will cause great personages to forget old injuries is deceived. You may offer a man a fortune today, but if you insulted his father or seized his lands yesterday, the wound remains open. Conquered people never truly rest. The name of liberty and their ancient privileges are rallying points that neither time nor benefits will ever make them forget. If you must strike an enemy, do it so severely that you need not fear his revenge. Men avenge light injuries, but they cannot avenge heavy ones. Therefore, the harm you do must be of such a kind that his ability to strike back is extinguished forever. Finally, assess your own strength. Are you a man who can stand on his own feet, or must you always rely on the arms of others? To depend on auxiliaries, troops borrowed from a more powerful neighbor, is a fatal gamble. If they lose, you are undone. If they win, you remain their prisoner. Only those defenses that depend on yourself and your own virtue are reliable, certain, and durable. Remember that all armed prophets have conquered, and the unarmed ones have been destroyed. The nature of the multitude is variable. It is easy to persuade them of a thing, but difficult to keep them in that persuasion. Your analysis must conclude with a cold realization. Your strategy is only as strong as your ability to enforce it through force when the words are no longer believed. The chessboard is set. Stop wishing for a fair game and start planning for a victory.
When the hour of execution arrives, you must cast aside the luxury of hesitation. If you have decided to move against an obstacle, your blow must be so devastating that you never have to strike a second time. I have always maintained that injuries ought to be done all at one time, so that, being tasted less, they offend less. If you are to do a man an injury, it must be of such a kind that you do not stand in fear of his revenge. Men avenge light injuries, but they cannot avenge heavy ones. If you leave your enemy with the breath to contemplate his ruin, you have merely planted the seeds of your own eventual destruction. Execution is not about anger. It is about the cold, surgical removal of threats. A cruelty well used is one that is applied once for the necessity of securing oneself and then never repeated, turning instead into benefits for those who remain. You will hear many say that the world is governed by fortuna and that wisdom is a fool's errand. They are wrong. I compare fortuna to one of those torrential rivers which, when in flood, overflows the plains, sweeping away buildings and bearing away the soil. Everything flies before it, and all yield to its violence. But this does not mean that when the weather is fair, men should not make provision with defenses and barriers. Success is the marriage of virtù and fortuna. Fortune is a woman, and if you wish to keep her under, it is necessary to beat her and strike her down. She allows herself to be mastered by the adventurous and the bold, rather than by those who go to work coldly. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is a ghost. Take the risk, build your dams while the sun shines, and when the river rises, you shall be the only one left standing on dry ground. To execute a master move, you must shed your human skin and learn to avail yourself of the beast. Ancient writers taught this when they wrote of Achilles being nursed by the centaur, half man, half beast. For a leader without both natures is not durable. You must know how to be the fox to recognize the traps, and the lion to terrify the wolves. The lion cannot defend himself against snares, and the fox cannot defend himself against wolves. Therefore, it is necessary to be a fox to discover the snares, and a lion to terrify the wolves. Those who rely simply on the lion's strength do not understand their business. They are crushed by the subtle trap. Those who are only foxes are devoured by the first pack of wolves they encounter. Your execution must be a symphony of cunning and force, the trap set in the dark and the sword drawn in the light. Finally, understand the destiny of the armed prophet. Many have sought to introduce new orders and change the world with nothing but the beauty of their words and the righteousness of their cause. They all failed the moment the multitude stopped believing in them. Consider Savonarola, a man of great spirit who was ruined because he was unarmed. He had no means of keeping steadfast those who believed or making the unbelievers believe by force. All armed prophets have conquered, and the unarmed ones have been destroyed. The nature of the people is variable. It is easy to persuade them of a thing, but difficult to fix them in that persuasion. When you make your move, your words must be backed by the weight of iron. Peace is maintained by the shadow of the sword, and a new order is only as secure as the force that protects it when the applause fades.
Your big move is not a suggestion. It is a new reality that you must be prepared to defend with everything you possess.
Do not be deceived by the momentary silence of your enemies. Victory is not a destination, but a fragile threshold. To seize a state is an act of force, but to keep it is an act of supreme virtue. You must now become the architect of a new reality, laying down foundations so deep that no storm of fortuna can uproot them. This requires the introduction of new modes and orders, a task more perilous than the battle itself. You must dismantle the old structures and ensure that the new laws you establish are the only ones your subjects know. Above all, you must orchestrate a state where your citizens, in every sort and kind of circumstance, have an absolute existential need for you. Loyalty is not born of love. It is born of the realization that without you, their world collapses. To rule for a lifetime, you must understand the singular boundary that no prince should ever cross, the sanctuary of a man's private life. A prince can endure being feared, but he must never allow himself to be hated, for hatred is the fuel of every conspiracy. To avoid this poison, you must stay your hand from the property of your subjects and from their women. It is a cold truth of our nature that the bonds of blood are weaker than the bonds of greed. Mark this well. Men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. You may take a man's life for a manifest cause, but if you take his gold, you create an enemy who will never sleep and a rebellion that never ends. The sun is setting on the era of your hesitation. To delay is to die. Those who wait for the perfect time only receive the crumbs that the bold have left behind. The world does not belong to the cautious who hide behind their virtues. It belongs to the impetuous who dare to strike the river of fate into a new course. Fortuna is a woman, and if you wish to keep her under, it is necessary to beat her and strike her down. She yields to those who command her with audacity, not those who plead with her in prayer. Now, go. Do not let the winds of chance lead you. Build the dams that make the river serve your will. The chessboard is yours, the iron is hot, and a new order awaits the touch of your hand. Depart from this sanctuary not as a seeker of luck, but as the absolute lord of your own destiny.